The ACL is one of the most important ligaments in a basketball player's knee, and when it tears, it can be extremely detrimental to their NBA career. So how is it possible that one man had a successful NBA career missing not only an ACL in one knee, but in both? Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and my goal in this channel is to help teach you about the medical side of the sports world. And in this video, we're going to touch on the medical marvel that is DeJuan Blair. Specifically, this story that he had no ACL in either knee, yet was able to play a successful NBA career. I want to start with a basic review of the function of the ACL, and then we'll talk about how it gets torn and why DeJuan Blair was able to play successfully despite not having one. Within the knee, there are four primary stabilizing ligaments. On the inside of the knee is going to be the MCL that runs from north to south. On the outside is going to be the LCL, stands for lateral, meaning outside collateral ligament. And then deep inside the knee is going to be the ACL. And then if we rotate around to the backside, we'll see the PCL. An injury to any four of these ligaments can be pretty serious for an athlete, but typically it's the ACL that we think of as being one of the most severe because of the function that it plays with stabilizing the knee joint. Remember that ligaments are basically ropes. They're passive structures in the body made up of collagen that connect two bones to one another. So it's unlike a muscle in that a muscle is going to fire and actively adapt or move or control what it's doing depending on the external forces or your activation pattern. A ligament is just static. It's just there. It's not able to change and necessarily adapt or fire on command. And we have to look at the direction of the ACL to understand then the motion that that ligament or that rope is preventing within the body. This, of course, is going to be the femur or the thigh bone going up high, and then the tibia or the shin bone going down lower. The ACL is shown here in red. And so the ACL runs from the front or the anterior portion of the tibia to the back side of the femur. So because of this front to back direction, the primary role of the ACL is to prevent the tibia or the shin bone from moving forward relative to the femur. So if we draw a line straight down from the front of the femur, the ACL is going to keep that shin bone from popping forward. Now there's also going to be a rotational component because if we look straight on, the ACL is not perfectly in that plane. It's going to run from the inside portion of the tibia to the outside portion of the femur. So it's also going to help prevent rotational movements of the knee. So then if we look at a classic example of an ACL tear, we can understand what exactly is happening. Here's this receiver plants with his left leg. You can see that knee cave inward a little bit, but then more importantly, after the ACL is torn, you can actually see his shin bone, this prominence right here, that's popped forward relative to the thigh bone, and then when the weight comes off of his foot, we all of a sudden will see it snap back upwards right there into that position. So that motion where the tibia has popped forward relative to the femur is because the ACL has torn, and then when the weight comes off the foot, we see it snap back up. The rotational component of what the ACL is doing comes into play because of that position where the knee is coming inward. When the foot lands and plants, that knee comes inward, and we can see this rotation of the shin, this rotation of the tibia internal relative to the femur, which is also going to put extra stress on the ACL and then help to lead to its rupture. With those basic biomechanics of the ACL in mind, we'll next talk about what happened with DeJuan and why he was able to prevent this from happening despite having no ACL. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. This video is sponsored by Geology. Geology is a 22-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company that creates simple and effective skincare and hair care routines personalized just for you. Their products are built around a handful of powerful and proven ingredients backed by scientists that have been trusted by dermatologists for decades. But perhaps my favorite and the best part of Geology is the simplicity. All you have to do to get started is let Geology walk you through a personalized quiz for their skincare and hair care routines. This makes sure you're getting exactly what you want to focus on without having to do all the thought for yourself. My routine features an everyday face wash followed by a vital morning face cream. Then in the evening, I repeat the face wash followed by a nourishing eye cream and a repairing night cream. In addition to their skincare, Geology also offers some fantastic products for hair care, body washes, and even deodorant. Right now, they're going to hook you up. If you go to the link in the description and use code Brian70, you're going to get 70% off their award-winning skincare trial set. But on top of that, you can also get up to 50% off of an add-on body, skin, or hair care product. So simplify your skincare routine with products that are backed by science and have been really helpful and effective for me. Thank you to Geology for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to our learning. The story with DeJuan is that he injured both ACLs supposedly in high school and underwent a surgery to try and fix the torn ACL. Whenever we fix torn ligaments or tendons in the body, there's two ways that we do it. We either do a reconstruction or a repair. A repair is whenever you take the native tendon or the native ligament in this case, and you stitch the two ends back together. You repair what's already there. A reconstruction, which is what's done for an ACL nowadays, is when you take a different tendon or a different tissue from somewhere else in the body and you use that to rebuild or reconstruct the ligament. So you're essentially making a brand new ACL as opposed to stitching the two ends together. There are some newer techniques trying to actually repair the ACL that are being researched, but when DeJuan went through this, they would have been doing a reconstruction. The challenge is that sometimes that graft that we call it, that we put inside the knee to replace the ACL, just doesn't take. It doesn't heal, it fades away, it degrades, and you lose that structural stability from that ACL no longer being functional. So this must have been what happened with DeJuan. He underwent surgery to try and reconstruct that ACL, but the graft never took for some reason, or the graft was re-injured. And then when doctors looked again later on, they discovered that there was no intact ligament present within the knee. One of the main reasons why DeJuan was able to be successful despite not having a true intact ACL was the position he played. As a center or forward, he wasn't doing a lot of cutting and pivoting, and an ACL injury is something that typically happens to an athlete that's cutting and pivoting and is more important in an athlete that's cutting and pivoting. If we look at a classic example here with Derrick Rose, we can see when he was cutting, he plants. That motion was when Derrick Rose tore his ACL. When Jamal Murray tore his ACL, it was the same sort of thing. He was cutting, he was planting on that left leg, he was trying to push off and change directions when he sustained his ACL tear. So while basketball is still an aggressive and general cut pivot sport, being a center or a forward is less of a cut and pivot position than something like a guard. It'd be really hard to imagine a guard being successful with both knees having compromised ACLs, but when you're doing a lot of more straight line running and jumping, the ACL isn't as important. But it still is really bizarre, and that's where we have to understand the biomechanics of the knee and how your knee is able to functionally compensate. When we look at our anatomy model here again, what I want to do is bring up the hamstring muscles. Of course, the hamstring muscles sit on the back side of the thigh, and whenever your hamstring muscles contract, they're going to pull your leg upwards into knee flexion, but it's also going to pull your tibia backwards. It's going to pull the tibia backwards relative to the femur. And remember, that's basically what the ACL is doing. It's preventing the tibia from moving forwards, therefore it's keeping it stabilized and helping to position in a backwards direction. So this means if you take an extreme example and you think, well, the tibia is going to be pushed all the way out forward, if you fire the hamstrings are going to help pull that tibia backwards in an active fashion to restabilize it within the alignment of the joint. Now, the hamstrings aren't going to have as much of a rotational component, but they're going to help actively stabilize the knee to prevent the tibia from going forward relative to the femur, which again is the main function of the ACL. This is why hamstring rehab is one of the central tenets of ACL injuries. It's people we see with deficient, weak hamstrings might be more predisposed to an ACL tear because that hamstring isn't able to actively help to stabilize and support the ACL. There's other muscles as well around the knee that are helping to provide that active stability. Remember, the ACL is passive. It's not able to adapt. It's not changing. It's not firing on command. But the muscles around your knee can fire on command to have more functional, stabilizing, active effects to sort of compensate whenever that ACL has been injured. In the case of someone like DeJuan, he would have undergone a period of rehab, rest, physical therapy after his surgeries where they would have been working on these compensatory muscles. And it probably wasn't a sudden situation where the ACL graft was never there. It was probably a very gradual process where things kind of degenerated over time. And when it's gradual like this, it gives your body more time to compensate as opposed to being a sudden, ridiculous, abrupt change. And we've seen other athletes with similar stories, right? Odell Beckham had his ACL reconstructed and then at some point re-injured it, sprained it. It was probably a cumulative type of thing before it ultimately hit a critical point in the Super Bowl where it completely tore. He felt a functional shift once again. There was a wrestler for the University of Iowa, Spencer Lee, who won national championships without an ACL in his knee. So we hear about these stories and they're definitely really unique, really unusual, and definitely not the norm. But it's also a good example of the power of the human body to compensate. This difference between passive stabilizers and active stabilizers. And so remember, when we see athletes who get these ligament injuries, it's not just about the ligament healing from a surgical perspective as it is allowing your body to learn to compensate, to strengthen these functional secondary stabilizers to help protect the joint. When we think about the elbow, for example, with a pitcher who might have Tommy John surgery, there's an active stabilizer in the elbow joint called the flexor pronator muscles that actually sits on top of the UCL ligament. And whenever people have weakness or deficiencies with that flexor pronator muscle, it does the same sort of thing, where it puts the UCL ligament under more stress, making it more likely to injure. And so part of the ways we can help with decreasing the risks of UCL injuries is to have good active stabilizers with that flexor pronator muscle to help support the passive structure of the UCL. It's a wild story, and I love it because it shows just how amazing the human body is. Also, you have to give a lot of credit to DeJuan because he would have had to have put in that rehab, that exercise, keep with those routines to keep that active stability when the ACL wasn't there to function. So that's it for the video, everybody. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below. Hope it was interesting, and until next time, I'll see you later.